Well, good evening. We're up and running, and it's another Wednesday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, 7 Mountain, and 6 Pacific. And hopefully I'll have a few people show up here in the next minute or two. Like to do a little bit of a sound check to make sure that everything is functioning as it should be. Anyway, we are continuing to move forward with the book. And here's the book, A Course in Miracles. And if you recall, the last few weeks we've been working on some of the ideas that are outlined, that are created in chapter 4, The Illusions of the Ego. And we're going to take another step forward with that this evening, as well as checking out what's going on with the daily lessons. And we're up to, what are we up to? We're up to lesson number, my goodness here, lesson number 38. And this is a particularly powerful lesson. I've got Carolina here with me. Hello, good evening, and I assume that my sound is coming through loud and clear, but if there's a problem, please let me know. And so, actually, I think we'll start off with the book tonight and then go to the lesson, and we'll see how the lesson plays out here, because like I said, it is a very empowering lesson. That's the point of A Course in Miracles, is to get you away from the victim mindset and to begin to realize that you have power over the situations you're encountering in life. And that's really astonishing compared to what the rest of the world's rhetoric is. You know, the world is always talking about what a victim you are or you will be. And A Course in Miracles comes along with the presence of the Christ. And, you know, it was dictated to Helen Schuckman by a presence within her consciousness that identified itself as Jesus. And really, the whole story of Jesus is about liberation. I mean, if you really look at what happened, the man was traveling throughout the country, teaching and healing and doing everything possible to make life better for all the citizens of Judea. And lo and behold, they ended up crucifying him. But the truth is, that worked out perfectly as far as his demonstrations of God's empowerment that God has bestowed upon us. So, you know, 3 days later, he raises the physical body up and presents it to a circle of people. And that, of course, is what created Christianity. And Christianity's kind of strayed away from the real message. But, you know, Jesus came back down, or came back through human consciousness, and gave us A Course in Miracles to get us back on track. So we're looking at chapter 4, The Illusions of the Ego, and we are moving down to the third section, Love Without Conflict. And this is a very timely message right now, because we see so much conflict going on both in our nation as well as around the world, and it really does seem to be ratcheting up. And there is a lot of fear and a lot of apprehension. And so if you're out there trying to survive in the material world, you've always got this dialogue going on in the back of your head about, you know, we're doomed. There could be a missile headed in our direction right now, and I wouldn't even know about it. So going to the Course in Miracles, we're going to approach love from an entirely different level. And that's going to relieve us of our fears if we actually practice what is being presented to us. And that really is the whole thing, the whole journey is, are you practicing it, or are you simply reading it or listening to it, but not really putting it into application? So anyway, it starts off with, it is hard to understand what the kingdom of heaven is within you really means. This is because it is not understandable to the ego, your thinking mind, which interprets it as if something outside is inside and thus does not mean anything. So your ego mind is also going to have a huge lapse of understanding. That's why you have to still the mind and experience it. You know, all of this is experiential. If you're babbling, if you're chattering constantly, then you're not actually putting the thoughts that are being presented to you into application. It says the kingdom of heaven, the word within is unnecessary. The kingdom of heaven is you. What else but you did the Creator create? And what else but you is his kingdom? This is the whole message of the atonement, a message which in its totality transcends the sum of its parts. You too have a kingdom that your spirit created. It has not ceased to create because of the ego's illusion. So in other words, you've got a whole life going on over here that is manifesting and unfolding perfection and joy and peace and harmony. But because you're so engaged with the ego all of the time, you're oblivious to that other part of your ongoing life experience. And that's what we're trying to do now, is we're trying to get our attention away from the ego and all of its little misadventures and come more clearly and completely into focus and start to reunite with our true self, the Christ within us. It says, the kingdom is perfectly united and perfectly protected, and the ego shall not prevail against it. Amen. This is written in the form of a prayer because it is useful in moments of temptation. It is a declaration of independence. So you are not the victim that your ego is trying to convince you that you are. You will find it very helpful if you understand it fully. The reason you may need my help is because you have denied your own guide and therefore need guidance. So this statement is a literal offering of assistance, support, and nurturing from Jesus, from the personality that we identify with Jesus. So that is really, you know, a very profound concept in and to itself, that we are not abandoned. We don't have to struggle to get out of the situations that we are engaged in. We have a power, we have a presence that is always working on our behalf. All we have to do is stop trying to take control and stop trying to fix things from this lower level of consciousness. So here we're being told that Jesus is an ever-present presence in your life, and that you can rely upon his guidance to get you through what you believe are occasionally insurmountable odds. So the reason you need my help is because you have denied your own guide. In other words, the Holy Spirit, the presence within us, and therefore need guidance. My role is to separate the true from the false, so truth can break through the barriers the ego has set up and can shine into your mind. Against our united strength, the ego cannot prevail. So again, we're being given a really magnificent assurance that all the things that we think we have created, all the ways that we imagine that we are, separate from God, all of those illusions can be immediately undone. But all you have to do is to lift yourself up, get out of the ego. See, and well, I got a few people here that have shown up. Richard Bartholomew It's too late. The human race is degeneration at an accelerated pace. It can't be fixed. Well, again, that's an opinion based on observation of the material world, and the material world is an illusion. God's creation, which is the real human race, was never defiled. It was never separated from the action and movement and consciousness of God. So when we get into this mindset of villainating our fellow man and demeaning humans around us and being caustic and being angry and being frustrated, really that's a reflection of an inner challenge that's going on within us. So we really have to look at our judgments and back off from judging others and start looking at the idea of forgiveness. and that is a core and foundation of A Course in Miracles. So anyway, as we're continuing to move forward here, I'm going to skip forward a little bit. It says, you who identify with your ego cannot believe God loves you. And that's basically the fundamental problem of the illusion of humanity around us. Nobody believes that God loves them. So they're off on this wild tangent of trying to create chaos. And of course, chaos is never ending. It snowballs. So we have to rise above the chaos of the illusion of this material world. You do not love what you made. In other words, your creation here in this material world is something that you feel is flawed, and so you don't love it. You're wanting to abandon it. Being made out of the denial of the Father, the ego has no allegiance to its maker. So the ego that you have created is going to sneak up on you and smack you in the back of the head with a baseball bat whenever it gets the opportunity. You cannot conceive of the real relationship that exists between God and his creations because of your hatred for the self you made. You project onto the ego the decision to separate, and this conflicts with the love you feel for the ego because you made it. So in other words, you made the ego as a way of experiencing separation from God and from the collective consciousness. And once you realized the magnitude of that decision, then you blamed the ego for the fact that you came to the awareness that that was really a mistake in a huge way. And, the foundation around that is very easy, because if God is love, then the ego is going to be the opposite, and that would be hatred. If God is life, then the ego is going to be opposite that, and that is death. And that's what we see going on around us. This is a world that is a testimonial to the idea of death. And that which God created in God's own image, us, you and I, we are incapable of experiencing death except by having a physical body and going through that belief that we are that body, and then to get that body maimed or trampled or go down to cancer or whatever it is. And that's what this world presents to us, is death repeated over and over and over again. So what we're trying to do is take a step above the ego's constant litany and to begin to empower ourselves, because we were given all of the power that God has when he created us. You take it literally from the Bible. God created man in his image and likeness. So we are a replication of God. Now, if God were a corporeal, human, physical being, then we'd be doomed. But the truth is, God is a spiritual being, and that's who we are. We are spiritual beings living in a state of eternity, having a dream of chaos, separation, fear, death, and destruction. Sounds like it might be time to wake up. And that's what the Course is giving us an assistance with, is getting us prepared to slowly withdraw our attention and our devotion to the dream. So anyway, let's take a look here at our lesson for today. Lesson 130, or lesson 38. There is nothing my holiness cannot do. Your holiness reverses all the laws of the world. It is beyond every restriction of time, space, distance, and limits of any kind. Your holiness is totally unlimited in its power because it establishes you as a son of God, at one with the mind of his creator. Through your holiness, the power of God is made manifest. And isn't that a thrilling idea being presented to us here? That we have dumbed ourselves down to the degree that we become the victim of the flu bug, we become the victim of the stock market, we become the victim of, the neighbor's kids who are hiding in the bushes and attack us every time we leave our house. I mean, there's so many trillions of different scenarios that we have imagined to disempower ourselves. And the Course comes along and flips that and says, no, that is not the case. You have allowed your ego to take charge, and the main litany of the ego is I can't. Throughout the Course, we're given this idea that the ego's constant statement and constant agenda is try, but don't succeed. And even when you do succeed, when you attain that thing that you think you want, the most important thing in the world to you, 2 days later, 2 months later, 2 years later, it's no longer the joy that you thought it would be. And this just goes on and on and on. You get a new house, you get a new car, you get a new this, you get a new that. And it becomes a never-ending process of consumption. I've got to go out and consume, because there is this raging emptiness within me that I need to fill. And that's what the ego is. It is an emptiness that is never going to give you a sense of being at peace. So it is through our meditation, and it is through our reaching out, through forgiveness and acceptance of those around us, that we start to build a bridge beyond that sense of separation that is making us miserable. And the way we do that is begin to realize we have the power to change our world. We are not the victims that we keep telling ourselves we are. It says, if you are holy, so is everything God created. You are holy because all things he created are holy. And all things he created are holy because you are. So it's just lapping back around and back around and back around and reinstating that you are the crown of creation. We imagine that God created puppy dogs and dinosaurs and, boulders and rocks and all these material things. God's oblivious to the material, because the material world is constantly degrading, falling apart, coming to an end, coming to a cessation, needing to be rebooted. And God's creation is perfect and eternal. And so therefore it is a spiritual experience. It is a spiritual creation. So going along with the exercises for today, and I do encourage you, I do think that, everybody will benefit magnificently from working with the daily lessons, because it does restructure the way you think about yourself. It gets you away from the idea that you do not have the power to make the changes necessary in your life, so that life becomes a source of joy rather than drudgery. So it says, in today's exercises, we will apply the power of your holiness to all problems, difficulties, or suffering in any form that you happen to think of in yourself or in someone else. We will make no distinctions, because there are no distinctions. So once again, it is giving us that reinforced idea that there is no separation. You are me, I am you. There is one creation, there is one life. We are all imagining ourselves as being separate, but separation would be to be exterminated. So the truth is, within the oneness of our community, within the oneness of our humanity, every time you do something on behalf of yourself to heal and to transcend your difficulties, to rise to a higher level, the whole collective, all of creation experiences that to one degree or another. And every time you reach out to include others, to look at other people's suffering and approach it from the level of this needs to be healed, this can be healed. You have to have the confidence. You can't just walk into it and say, oh, gee, I wish I had the power to heal that. See, the truth is we do have the power, but the power comes through our surrender to the truth within us. So it's not our ego getting out there and beating people into submission and making changes in the world by force. It is the gentle flow of grace that comes through us that goes into the minds of those around us. And that's what lifts us up as a collective. So that's how we're healing the world. So anyway, to go on, it says, try to make as little distinction as possible between a situation that is difficult for you and one that is difficult for someone else. Identify the situation specifically and also the name of the person concerned. Use this form in applying the idea for today. And that's what these exercises do. If you are consistent, if you are working with the exercises, you will begin to dislodge all of your false ideas about life and all of your false ideas about who you are. Because that really is what A Course in Miracles is teaching us. It's teaching us our true identity. We are not who we thought we were. We are not tall and muscular or short and chubby or, all of these different ideas based on our carnal experience, based on our physical experience. We are, in fact, spiritual beings that are limitless in scope and range. In other words, you're not limited to the body. You are all of creation reflected into a single point of awareness. So the way we work with this lesson then today is in the situation involving, I'll put in the name George here, or involving, we want a situation. So in the situation involving a lack of money, in which I see myself, there is nothing that my holiness cannot do. So if you start working on repeating these kinds of affirmations and keep them close to your heart and keep them in the forefront of your mind, they start to change the way your mind responds to life. Your mind has the ability to produce infinite wealth. It has the ability to produce infinite health. It has the ability to produce infinite companionship. See, but you have allowed your mind to go untrained, undirected, undisciplined. And now it's time to get it back on track. That's what we're doing with our meditations. That's what we're doing when we're bringing our mind to stillness. We're giving it form. We're giving it direction. So that when we do approach it and say, my holiness can resolve any problem in my life, then we're shifting that to the next level. We are shifting our experience of life from the victim to the victor. And that's a pretty amazing leap out of the drudgery of the physical realm, the physical experience. If you're working on behalf of somebody else, in the situation involving cancer, in which Tom sees himself, there is nothing my holiness cannot do. And that's how we want to be supportive of those around us. We want to recognize that my holiness, your holiness, it's all one holiness. And that essence within us has no limitation. And the more we work with these ideas, the more we affirm these thoughts, the more you are actually working on behalf of those who reach out to you for assistance. So when somebody says prayer, please pray for me because I have cancer, don't start whining to God about, oh my God, this poor soul is being eaten alive, and will you please come down and eliminate the cancer? That's something that God is completely oblivious to. God doesn't know what cancer is. See, what you're doing is you're reversing the energy here. And you're taking it upon yourself to know the truth within you and within every human being on the planet, within every human being that has ever lived or will live. There is a spark, there is an essence, there is a presence. And you refer to that presence as my holiness, the Christ within me, that which keeps me going, that which animates me, that which is the spark of perfection. And if you bring perfection into an illusion, the illusion is just going to evaporate. It's just, it has no power. It cannot sustain itself. So that's how we approach reaching out to others and giving them the assist that they so rightfully deserve. Nobody should be living in the illusion of any kind of flawed existence. So we want to pull things together inside our own consciousness so that we are able to share that with those around us. And we are able to share healing. We are able to share love. We are able to share knowledge on every level of life. So this is really an amazing and empowering lesson when you really stop and think about it, because it completely removes all the restrictions that you have placed upon yourself. Now, I'm not going to tell you that, you do this, the verbal activities involved in the lesson here for 1 or 2 days and expect this complete transformation overnight. It can happen, and I have known people that have had it happen in their lives, and to a certain degree, I've had some very remarkable instantaneous healings. But the truth is, it is a journey, and so we have to continue to practice, we have to continue to stay focused, and we have to be diligent and attentive. Whenever you find your mind meandering off in the direction of death, doom, and destruction, you don't go chaotic with it. You just put your attention on it, observe it, and all of a sudden your mind will slow down and it will eventually stop moving in those directions. And you replace those thoughts with the truth. And what more valuable truth could you possibly replace these negative thoughts with other than there is nothing my holiness cannot do? There is nothing that presence of God, that spark of the divine within me, cannot do. So it's pretty doggone amazing how beautiful our lives are when we are able to step out of the ego that we identify with. Because then we step into a realm where there is unlimited potentiality going in all directions. We are divinity. We are invulnerable. We are the source of joy that we would like to share with those around us. And we are capable of transcending any block, any barrier, any difficulty that life throws at us. But it's all in the power of your thought. Remember that Jesus gave us that brilliant line in the Bible, in the New Testament, where he said, as a man thinketh, so is he. And, 1,400 years later, 1,500 years later, Shakespeare comes along and gives us a parallel thought. There is nothing that is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So events, circumstances, situations, they simply are. They show up, and you know, if you're staying on track with your constant thinking, you're probably not going to be attracting these huge pitfalls and, you know, life-challenging circumstances. But everything that comes along in our lives, we can respond to with either, I hate this, I'm going to resist it, I love this, I want to get more of it, or we can stay in the middle of the path and merely look at it and say, oh, I have a flat tire, I suppose I should change it. And by not giving it any power over us, by not subjecting ourselves to the circumstances of this physical life, we all of a sudden are starting to step into a much higher way of life, a much higher way of dealing with our own crisis, with our own circumstances, as well as that of those around us. So it really is very, very important that we get out there, we interact, we open ourselves up to spirit, and we participate. But we participate not by protest, not by pushing, not by shoving, but simply using the mind to affirm the truth that that sacred power within us can confront any situation that we are experiencing, and we can transcend it, and we can see those around us heal and have a better life as well. So, hope you enjoyed this evening's session. I do have a website that is based on A Course in Miracles. It's got a lot of information there. It's www.themiraclewithin, all one word, .org. And you can go hang out there and see some of my other videos and get a lot of insights about what A Course in Miracles offers. So get out there, have some fun, enjoy life, take the richness, the bounty, the savory part of our existence, and embrace it and share it, pass it along. And in 1 week, we'll continue the journey. So, as I said before, get out, share the love, pass the love around, and I will be chatting with you soon.